One of these days I'll remember to put the mic on before I start. All right, Ryan, you're here. Therefore, we are doing some Acrolites. I wanted to first just get the sound of this satin brass in my ears. Before swapping in, so let's go right into it. So that's 5x14 satin brass, Bucks County. We are going to go through, first of all, we'll grab this is the one I've been using on sessions for a band out of Peru called Indigo. This is the sound that we settled on for their upcoming record. I'm just working on a few tracks for them now. So I haven't touched it since the last session. So we wanted a Tame Impala War on Drugs kind of sound for this. So this is the Black Galaxy. I don't know when these came out, in the 90s. It's like a poor man's Black Greedy looking drum. I have a handkerchief, like a nice restaurant quality handkerchief taped on, or not taped on, clipped on. You can see that much. The wires are tight. Let's see where the tuning is. There we go. $154 Hz, which is a slightly flat D sharp third octave. The bottom head I think is, yeah, it's still up at a high F sharp. So the fundamental of the drum, D sharp third octave. Wires are tight. You can hear how the low end comes in when the wires are tighter. I have not played a hammered acrophonic. What makes it an acrophonic? Is it 10 lugs? Does it have imperial lugs instead of bowtie lugs? But I've never played that. I think the jury's still out whether hammering the shell really does a whole lot to the sound. But I could be convinced. So that's the Acrolite, the Tame Impala style. Dead, dry, real kind of compressed sounding. Kind of has a bit of a Steve Gadd kind of sound too. Yeah, this is a cool sound. It records really well. That's with no close mic, so you're only hearing the overhead and some of the EAD10. You put a close mic on this, and it's ready for mix. That gets used a lot, specifically on some sessions recently. Let's see. Let's go to this one. This one, I think they call this orange peel. It's like a textured finish. Kind of looks like an orange peel. This is the drum I actually started on, 5th grade band. Still has the original bottom head. It looks like either some lugs have popped or I was going for like a real flabby sound with this one. Let's see where it's at. I haven't touched this in months. I don't think that was the sound. Something probably popped loose. Let me tighten it up. Yeah, you should never sell an Acrolite. You should only buy Acrolites. Yeah, that's where this one was. I don't know why that got detuned. I must have been messing around with it, trying some crazy stuff. This one has a UV1 on it. Cool head, more durable than a G1, maybe a little bit deader sounding. I've got the internal dampener engaged, I would say moderately. The wires are, again, pretty tight. Six and a half Supra is so different from an Acrolite. You need both of them. I mean, you can't get this to sound like John Bonham, and you definitely can't get a 6.5 Supra to sound like Tame Impala kind of vibe. I guess you could, but you'd be kind of fighting it a bit. So this is, I would say, medium high. Let's see where it's at. .190, which is like a sharp F sharp or a flat G. Kind of right in the medium high world. Very dry sounding, very, again, kind of compressed. Not very loud. So that's kind of the medium high. Oh, I'm glad the mix is sounding good. I mean, I think big part of it is the audio mute treatment. I can't lie, and good drums. Everything else is nothing special. That is kind of the medium high, dry, funky sound, which I also love. And any of these drums can do any of these sounds. It's just kind of where I have them seated. So that's the orange peel guy, which was my first snare drum in 5th grade. Whenever that was, 1990. This is the other probably most common one, the Battleship Gray painted, like powder coated version. Again, I have no idea where it's tuned. This is usually the one I have like medium low, kind of punchy, splatty, and open. Let's see. Yeah, it's ringy. Let's see where it's at. Definitely not evenly tuned, pretty wild and crazy. So where is it tuned currently? And then I think I want to loosen it a bit. F sharp 3rd octave, 184 Hertz. I think I normally have this one down a bit. And that's kind of where this version lives. What's up, Michael? Silent stroke heads, L80 cymbals. Hey, glad those options exist, though. I was living at home. I had one of those terrible Remo practice pad kits, which was so annoying. I put t-shirts all over it. I built my own bass drum practice pad out of plywood and like foam. It was terrible. I actually took that to my college dorm. It had to have been terrible for everyone hearing me practicing double bass on that thing. All right, so that's rated F, 175. That's where this version kind of lives when I don't have any dampening on it. It's in this kind of medium low. So that usually gets used for kind of indie rock or anything that needs some kind of attitude. And it's not as loud. It's not as loud as a brass drum at that tuning. It's, the overtones are kind of more kind of blended in. So you can hit it, you know, it kind of like does like the cool, it kind of breaks apart. It's almost like it has a distortion pedal when you hit it harder. But yeah, the ghost notes are probably most likely getting picked up by the E8010 down here because it's kind of side, almost under. And again, the room is so dead. There's no natural reverb in here at all. Adam, do you mess with swapping out hoops much on the Acros? A little bit, not much. This is the factory 1.6, factory 1.6. I don't know if on the Black Galaxy they went to 2.3s. On the next one, which I'll grab now, it has single flange. I don't think heavier hoops on an Acrolite are a good idea. I would not put die cast on it. I would not put anything 3.0s or solid brass or anything heavy because it's such a lightweight, dry sounding shell that you're just gonna kill all the coolness with heavy hoops. All right, so this is, I believe it's a 60s shell on the original issues. I got this from my buddy Bruce Hagwood at RBH Drums. It was just a shell and lugs. There was no hoops. And I had these single flange hoops laying around from a different project, so I put those on it. There was no rhyme or reason other than it's what I had, so it's what I put on it. Again, I have no idea how it's tuned. This is usually the one I tune up a little bit higher, but it's not at the moment. I remember what I was doing. I was trying to find which one of these Acrolites did this lower, medium, low kind of thing best. That's why they were all kind of at their start. So it's probably in the same general area, but it's close to an F. That's an E, so it's a little bit lower. Yeah, I'm not going to put any more mics on the kit in this room unless I have to. I felt like the side snare could use a little reinforcement just because the overhead is aimed away from it and the E8010 is getting blocked by the main snare, but I ain't sweating it. So this is a bit lower at an E currently. You can definitely tell the single flange hoops are letting the drum really kind of explode and kind of just go everywhere. I'm going to tune it up. Right up to G sharp. Didn't take much to get it up there. It was pretty high and pretty wide open G1 on this one. The internal dampener's gone, so no muffling at all. So it's got some kind of bright pingy, classic 60s funk reggae vibe. Take it down just a skosh. And now it's at a G. I don't know, skosh, I have no idea. It's not a Pennsylvania thing that I'm aware of because I'm not originally from Pennsylvania. I live close to the border of Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, and West Virginia. It's probably maybe a mid-Atlantic thing. No idea where I first heard it. It could also be a North Jersey thing because I was just surrounded by that culture for 17 years. So it could be a New York, New Jersey thing. I don't know what scotch is. Scotch, really. I probably should look it up. It might be something gross. So when I think of Acrolite, it's either this tuning usually, or the way I have the Black Galaxies, like super low and compressed. The other stuff, the mid-rangey stuff, I mean, it sounds cool. I don't know if it's definitively an Acrolite sound. I can kind of get those same vibe out of brass or any other snare. But this kind of high sound, you kind of hear it go, wow. That to me is Acrolite all the way. All right, I'm gonna Google scotch. If no one else has, what does it mean? What is a scotch? Scotch. I don't even know how to say it right. A small amount. All right, what is the... Some people think it's slang from Midwest or possibly Yiddish, when in reality it's derived from the Japanese word sakoshi, which means a little. There you go, sakoshi. It's Japanese. Is it a smidgen or a skosh? Skosh is defined as the very smallest unit of a fake measure. There you go. You live and you learn. I thought it might have been a Yiddish word, but it's not. It is Japanese. Skosh. There you go. So if you have an Acrolite, I would tune it like this. I don't think the hoops really matter. If anything, the hoops are letting it kind of spray the overtones a little bit more. But it's still pretty dry sound by all comparison. I bet if I had that brass drum tuned exactly like this, it would be ringing for days. G1 coated, that's my default for every drum. I only use something different if either I don't have a G1, like the UV1 I put on this one because I had a bunch of them, or I'll use a G2 on bigger drums that I know I'm going to be hitting harder and tuning a little bit lower. I've experimented with the power center reverse dot. I don't like the way it feels at all, so I don't use that head. And that's kind of it. Sometimes a J1, I guess it's the Strata 1000, if I want a really kind of old school hard bop sound. But G1, 99% of the time. So that's my favorite tuning for an Acrolite when I want kind of the like 60s soul funk kind of sound. I like it better on an Acrolite than a Superphonic tune. Again, the Superphonic tune that this tuning for me, it just ends up sounding a little bit too bright for whatever reason. To me, I like supers tuned. In the medium range where I have these, the Battleship and the Orange Peel is usually where I have a super tuned. For whatever reason, I feel like it just lives better there. So if you can get yourself a 60s shell, doesn't matter the hoops, the stock 1.6s will be fine. Tune it kind of medium high, G I think is where I ended up. It'll be super funky. And then the alternative would be any Acrolite, any era. This definitely has heavier hoops on it. I can tell just by feeling it. This has 2.3s on it. I mean, it's such a different sound. Very compressed. That's the sound. Beat it. 80s. 80s kind of, that also has a G1 on it. Thoughts on the 6.5 by 6.5 Acro? I have two of them. I have the reissue with the Battleship Gray, and I have kind of a one-of-a-kind Black Galaxy shell in a 6.5 that has, I don't know, I have to bring it in here sometime. It was put together by a buddy of mine who was working at the Ludwig factory at the time. So it's just a bunch of miscellaneous parts with the 6.5 Black Galaxy shell. What are my thoughts on it? It doesn't sound as good as a Superphonic to me. I think if I'm going to go with a 6.5, I will almost always default to the Superphonic or my Masters of Maple Black Ugly, which is basically a brass, nickel over brass kind of Black Beauty sound. I do tune, which one? The Black Galaxy. I tune it way low like this one, and it just gives like a Def Leppard kind of sound. So if you think of this as 80s pop, Michael Jackson, the deeper one for me, kind of tunes similarly, muffled a lot. The wires will be looser, usually. That is the like Def Leppard, Mutt Lange, larger than life kind of sound. Tuned higher, the 6.5 I think just rings too much and not in a good way. I don't prefer it tuned that way. I usually go to the Supra or the Black Ugly for that. I thought about selling my deeper one. I mean, the Black Galaxy I probably won't sell ever because it's just unique. It's one of a kind thing. The other one, I'm just hanging on to it for now because I did pay $450 for it. But again, I just use a Supra. You can hear how tight the wires are. But it really opens up. So that's about as hard as I hit it when I'm recording with this drum. Is the Black Ugly similar to the Black Magic? Similar. It is. It's not a seamless shell, so it's not like a Black Beauty. It is a rolled and welded shell, but they put heavy 2.5 solid brass triple flange hoops on it and big old solid brass tube lugs, which makes a huge difference. That drum has tons of power and tone. The Black Magics, which I owned them all at one point, the original version, which came with the black nickel die cast tubes, I think, and skinny tube lugs. They were cool, but it just didn't have the mojo. It didn't have the vibe. It didn't have the definitely didn't have the tone of a seamless, and didn't have the power of my Black Ugly. They just kind of were a little bit generic. But they're nice. They're nice drums. Nothing wrong with them. If that's what you can get for a brass drum, it'll serve you well. And I haven't played the newer versions that had the chrome triple flange tubes, just the die cast ones, which I'm not a fan of die cast. So if you're going to have two Acrolites, which I have 6, I tune one high like that, the 60s one, and one low like that. Covers your sounds, and you can fill in the middle with some brass or a superphonic or something. Like if someone said, you can only bring 4 drums to a session, we're going to cover a wide range of styles, a wide range of eras, I probably would do this one, the 60s one, my 5x14 Black Beauty, and a 6.5x14 wood drum, solid, maybe my solid birch GMS. That would kind of cover everything. Because the Black Beauty kind of covers all the real kind of hi-fi, modern, contemporary sounds. The 60s would kind of cover the old kind of soul, open, bright, cracky sound. This would cover the 80s dead sound. And then that solid birch is just a really great full sounding drum. It can do rock, it can do everything. I've used that probably more than any other wood drum. It's a solid Von Craft flamed birch 6.5x14 steam bent shell that Tony at GMS built out for me years ago. So what don't I like about die-cast tubes? I think they just kill the personality of the drum far too much. Unless it's a shell that just you don't like the way it's kind of speaking. Some steel drums benefit from die-cast because steel can just be super annoyingly ringy. And maybe some wood drums that could just use some focus, but in general the die-cast to me just kind of makes everything just sound like a drum. It's gonna lose the vibe. what happens, you went from needing 0 snares to now needing at least 2, maybe 6. 2. I would say 2 acros and you're good. Anything more than that, you're just getting silly like me. So this internal dampener is stuck. There it goes. No, it's like stuck. I think it's stuck on the head, so I'm not going to mess with it. That kind of sounds like tower power to me. Yeah, I'm kind of hit or miss with the internal dampener. It's like this one is literally stuck to the head. The felt pad is like somehow adhered to the head. And they can rattle, like when you turn them off, that little rivet can rattle. So that's the orange peel with the stuck internal dampener. And then this is the Battleship powder coated. Questlove type sound. I guess it depends on which Questlove sound you're talking about, because he always gets different sounds. I'm going to crank this one up just for the heck of it. Now these lugs 100% will break. I've broken them before, these bow tie lugs. They're definitely cheaper than the Imperials and way less durable than tube lugs. So there is a chance you could pop because they're just made out of like cheap pot metal. The Ludwig standard aluminum, I don't know what, you're talking about the old ones. The old ones are amazing. They might be better than most Acrolites of the same era. If you can get a 60s, 70s, whenever those came out. Standard series aluminum, those things kill. Again, different lugs, cheaper lugs, but they sound super good. So I just cranked this thing almost as far as I think it'll go. It feels like there's a lot of tension in these lug casings. I don't want to pop any screws. When I was a kid, I would just crank them as high as I possibly could and then try to go even higher. with the old trusty iPhone dampener. Go wide open. I mean, it's super cool, but I feel like you can get that sound out of pretty much any drum. Just crank it up. Well, let's see where it ended up. Let's say it's about as high as this bad boy can go. Yeah, it's way up there. A. Sharp A, 225. Let's bring it down to a normal A. Cool, still pretty bright. I'll take it to G sharp, which is usually the highest I will tune a drum. Which I think, if I recall, was where Carter McLean had the Lion King snare when I was subbing for him, right around G sharp. Yeah, that's the Acrolite sound to me. Everything above that was just kind of choked. All right, so last thing we'll do is compare this to where the 60s went, because they're both tuned, I think, to the same note. All right, tambourine, go over here. So now they should be pretty darn similar. This is the 60s shell with the single flange hoops. I'm hearing more low end, more spray. So maybe the hoops, maybe the shell. but I'm hearing a little bit more low end, a little bit wider spread compared to the powder coated 70s version. How tight or loose is the bottom head? The bottom head is always at F sharp, which is pretty high. And the wires, it just depends on the drum and the sound. I would say this one, the wires are as tight as they can go before it starts to choke out. So yeah, I still like this one best tuned high like that. Just has more of everything. Maybe it's the hoops, so maybe what I'll do one of these days is get a whole bunch of different hoops, use the same shell, and demo different hoops. I won't be able to do that live because it'll take too long, but I could probably pre-record it. So that's it. I'm gonna hop off. That is the Ludwig Acrolite comparison by request. I don't know, this is the winner for me, for fun. Fun Zone Acrolite, 60s with single flange. The workhorse that gets the most action is the Black Galaxy Dead with the handkerchief taped on it. Ooh, which camera's on? So these two drums get the most action. But just experiment. They can kind of do it all. They excel in the high and excel in the low, and they do fine in the mid-range. So just be aware, a little careful with throw-offs. They can be janky. Sometimes they don't hold tension well. So ideally, I'd probably put a new throw-off on the ones I use the most. I don't take these out of the studio, though. They live in the studio. My gigging drums are new drums that have better throw-offs, hold tension better. But these are good studio pieces. Is that landscapers? All right, that's it for now. Have a good one. I'll be back on tomorrow, so I'll see you then.